Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Louis D'Souza, and today is Monday, February the 24th, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time, and wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And we're off to a rapid start this week. I said rapid rather than rapid, but I said it deliberately because I feel like I am basically running away from wild dogs today, and I want to change that. So I have a list, Louis, of things that I do when I go to whenever I need to kind of shift things around. The top of my list is to do a podcast. So what do you say? Let's do a podcast, and that way I can avoid the rabid dogs.
If not, why not? Close the door, they're coming through the windows. Close the door, they're coming up the stairs.
That's just my rather queer and
those
strange
rabid
way.
Dogs are everywhere.
Oh, they're crazy. Yeah, that's my bizarre way of saying I've had a challenging day, and I am determined to change my attitude around to a good attitude, which is ironic because this morning, one of the intentions I set for myself was that I was going to be throughout the day, every 15 minutes or so, 30 minutes, something like that, stopping, taking stock, getting myself into a better feeling place, and then going on. And I did that for about 2 hours, and then it's almost as if my brain turned off and completely forgot the plan. And of course, because I wasn't following my plan and I was working on something that was pretty tough to work on, I descended. And so I guess that gives me a topic for the day. The topic is when you set your intention, when you get yourself feeling good and you're determined to stay feeling good and you don't, what do you do? You feel good again. It's about the only other thing I can think of to do.
Well, you start the process again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Practice makes perfect, you know.
I mean, I experienced very much the same thing last Monday, and it makes me wonder if there's a Monday thing going on for me. But last Monday we had to cancel because I was just not feeling well before the podcast. And like I was telling you just before we got started here, an hour and a half later, I was feeling fine. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? This is not normal for me. I love doing podcasts. Why am I doing this? So I don't know. So sometimes it is worthwhile to pay attention to what's going on and ask yourself, why is it going on? And, I think sometimes it's just not even worth asking. Just stop, pivot, and go in the other direction, because otherwise you just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, I've learned that life is so simple that the only reason we think it's complicated is because we've spent too much time thinking about what we don't want. And it's blown me away because the simplicity of it really is. I mean, you know the own answer to your own question, and you've already said it. But can it be that simple? Can it be that easy?
Why is it we don't trust that all the time? I mean, I do trust it an awful lot of the time, and yet every once in a while I just don't. I don't know. So just, turn anyway. That's the only solution I could think of. So how are you doing? I mean, I just gave you a rather melancholy story. I want to turn that around. So I hope things are going well in your neck of the woods. How are things?
Good. I mean, we had the school holidays, so the kids were around, and we were doing loads of things with them. And one of the things was, I'm always got this idea in my mind that everything's always working out for me, and if not that, something better. So I was planning to go to a movie, and there was obstacle after obstacle. What happened? So booked the tickets. So the movie house is really full, so I could only get 2 above and 2 below, so the 4 of us could be together. So I've got my 4-year-old, so she needs to be close to me. So I go to the movie, and they've scattered us to the 4 corners of the movie house.
Oh no! Oh jeez.
So I go to and say, I'm sorry, I've got a 4-year-old. I just can't do this. So she checked my tickets and said, but they're not next to each other, because I said I booked them next to each other. So, okay, so once you book it and somebody else has already booked those seats, then it sends you to wherever randomly. And I didn't know that. So, I was given 4 free tickets. So yeah, 4 free tickets. I said, that's great. But I don't know if we can, when we can next come back and all the rest of it. Well, she said, well, you know what? I'll give you 4 extra free tickets for 4 p.m. if you can come, because that's the huge screen where, we've got no problem fitting you in. It's, it's got like about 1,000 seats or something. I said, oh, cool. Okay. So let me go speak to the kids. And yes, we had the time. So we went and had a little bite to eat, then came back and we used the 4 free tickets with the VIP seating. And I was like, this is cool. I was
Nice.
really enjoying this. And then, so we had 4 other extra tickets, which you had given us, over and above this. And then during the cinema, they had a fire alarm. So we all got up and started leaving. And I'm thinking, if not this, something better.
Yeah. Good having the presence of mind to say that. Yes.
So we get to the door and they say, go back, it's false alarm. So that's cool. All right, false alarm. And so we sit down, watch the rest of the movie. It was good. Really enjoyed it. It was a nice little animation, Sonic. Then when we get to the door, my daughter's going out before me with her friend, my 12-year-old. And they say to you, how many people are in your group? So she said 4. So they gave her 4 free tickets. So when I got to the door, they asked me, how many people in your group? I said 4. So she gave me 4 free tickets. So we walked out of there with like 12 free tickets.
Oh, that's funny.
And not only that, we only paid for 2 tickets for the 4 of us because we had a deal going. So, we were just like rolling in tickets. So we can go to movies forever from now on. But, it's just to keep that, as you say, that presence of mind to say, if not that, something better, And it was really, my daughter was absolutely enthralled. She was like, oh, thanks, Dad. It was like one of the best movies and all the rest of it, because instead of spending money on tickets, I went and got a whole lot of snacks and things for them, and they were in heaven. So it was really great. So I really enjoyed that. And I've had a lot of problems with my Jaguar. So one thing after the other starts breaking down.
Oh dear.
So the heating starts going. The air vents don't turn on anymore. The heating from the front and the back and the seats, all of those things aren't working anymore. Then my front left light's not working anymore. And then it's flickering on and off. And so the temperature's not working anymore correctly. And, just everything's like failing. And then it's cold. So you've got no heating in the car because none of the air vents and all the rest of it. So, the basics work, the engine, the motor, and the steering wheel.
This is a good
Everything
part,
else is just conked out. So because it's, it's a new car, we sent it back to the dealer, and the dealer said, we'll fix it. So they gave us a replacement car, and all the rest of it. But it was great. I was saying, if not that, something better. So, okay, now we've got a car and we've got some heating. And I'm really happy that everything's working, and so like 3 weeks they've had this car, because it takes 3 weeks to get a booking with Jaguar.
Wow.
And so they've got it booked in with Jaguar. Jaguar gives you a video. So you've got a video of exactly what's wrong with your car and how it all works. So what happens is water dripped in and got onto the electrics. And this was a known fault with that model of Jaguar.
Oh.
So they fixed the leak and they've now replaced all the bits and pieces. So I pick it up tomorrow again. So I'm just glad this didn't happen on my watch, because I would have had to pay for it, and that would have been a fortune. That would have been £3,000-4,000 worth of repairs. So, I'm always grateful that these things happen in the right way and the right time often,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. I love that phrase that you use. If not this, something better. That's a good one. It's nice. It's nice and short.
If not that, if not this or that, or this or that. Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah. If not that, something better, or if not this, something better. Yeah. It takes the angst away from the situation, because what we want to say in those situations is something like, why can't I get it better than this? Or, something that focuses on the negative on it. But the if not part just kind of skips past that really, really
Yeah.
quickly and goes right to something better. And that's the good part about it. It's a very quick way out. I like that. I'm gonna have to start using that one. If not, there's something better. In fact, I'm even making a note about it. So everybody, write this down. But yeah, that's really good. Oh, and I love the tickets. I mean, it's always great when we have a manifestation story, but this is like, the tickets that kept exploding. They just kept getting bigger and bigger in the pile.
But that's what the saying says. If not that, something better, and something
Yes,
better,
exactly.
and something better, and something better,
Yeah.
and that's how it works. It just works brilliantly, and if you keep that focus going, because it's easy to, oh no, firearms gone off. What now?
What could go wrong next? I mean, there's a
Yeah,
great one to say,
exactly.
right? that one's going to go a long way.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but how I knew that I managed to keep my vibration really high through the whole thing was when my daughter and her best friend who went with us was saying, I really enjoyed that. It was really fun.
No,
Really
that's
had a good
good.
time, even with all the bumps along the way. All of them. They were really happy.
Well, that's the beauty of kids because I mean, we have to train them really well in order to make them miserable worry wards. We can eventually do that, but that's not the way they start out. And because they don't start out that way, I mean, it's like water on a duck's back. It just flows away really quickly.
Mm.
They don't really get into that angst situation and stay there like the adults do. And they're like they're models to emulate, really.
Mm.
That's the way I think about it. So, but that's great though that they felt that way. That despite everything, they felt great, and they loved the
Then
movie.
then I have another thing because I've been doing my garage. So I've got two garages, and I wanted to replace one of them with an automatic door
Mm-hmm.
so that my Jag can go in and out and all the rest of it. So I cleared out the tenant who was using it, and the two are next to each other, my existing one and that one. And I thought, I'll just put it in that one. And then I started to realize that the Jag is too big to fit in this thing.
Oh no!
I had a station wagon before, and it's 30 centimeters longer than my station wagon
Really?
was. Yeah,
Wow, that's surprising.
and it's only a sedan. Um, so it was really quite fascinating because I started the whole process of getting this thing, and then realized that the Jake's not going to fit in here. So all the trauma of all the rest of it. So I've now had to break out the middle wall between the two and have a long door, automatic door, and that is a huge change to everything. And the way they're putting the door, they're putting it right in the outside of the bricks instead of on the inside, so it gives you that extra space.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, so it's gonna be right on your
Um,
bumper, but you can still get it in.
yeah, it'll be more than that. It'll be
Oh,
about 15 centimeters front and back. So,
oh well, yeah, that's pretty close
uh,
though.
and yeah, it is. It is still close. So the guy was recommending putting uh, tennis balls on the wall to stop the car, and I thought it's quite a good idea actually. For a bumper type thing
Better
when
than
you have
scratching it on concrete or wood or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
Because I was always looking for some kind of idea of what to use for that, and I like that idea. But I was constantly saying through the whole thing, if not that, something better.
Mm.
Now I must admit it is costing me more.
Yeah. Well, maybe we need to rephrase the phrase.
But I got a discount all the way around because I've now gone for a bigger one, and I'm sticking with these guys and all the rest of it. And the other guy said it's not going to cost me much more because you're already going to knock out the middle wall. So I've got a door to my yard at the back, and then the front is going to be the electric door. So I always wanted to use that space, and it's been dead space for years now. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I have rented it, so it wasn't quite dead. But I mean, I got £50 a month, which is really neither here nor there. So now we're going to have fridges in there, and we're going to be able to put our washing lines for the winter in there. We're going to be able to do a lot of storage of a whole lot of things and all the bikes and put them up on the wall.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
it's going to give us a huge amount of more space, etc. So really, really happy about that. But I could have fallen apart on so many. It was tough for me.
Well,
With
that occurred to me because what you're basically describing is a scenario where anybody else could have easily, and you could have very easily, fallen into seeing all the things that were going wrong. But instead, you found ways to look at what was going right, which is the whole trick.
yeah,
But you did.
and there was also financial things. So I thought, okay, so I've got more money going out than I expected. How can I get more money coming in that I didn't expect?
Mm-hmm.
And it came in. It just like wow, it just came in, and unexpectedly we got more of one of my businesses brought in like an extra grand out of the
Whoa,
blue.
yeah, nice.
And it was like, wow, this is nice. This is really cool.
Yeah.
So, the whole thing is revolved around not saying I can't afford it, but saying how can I get more money in?
Mm-hmm.
And I often say to people, don't cut corners so much. Focus on bringing more wealth into you, more opportunities, more, um,
That's the
more.
challenge.
Yeah,
That's the challenge right there because so many people, and I put myself in this category too because I've been there for long stretches of time in my life. We develop a mentality of scarcity,
yeah.
and when you're in that scarcity mentality, it's often very difficult to imagine that, okay, I can just imagine that there's going to be this new unexpected income coming in and it's
But
going to
I
just
don't
flow right
believe
in.
it.
I don't really believe it down deep. I'm smiling though. Do you see me smiling? And I'm talking very, very positively, but deep down, I don't really believe it. I mean, I know what that's like. That's
Yeah.
not an easy place to be. So you have to work. You have to work your mind. You have to work your perception. You have to work the way you're thinking about it. And
I
even in
don't
the
like the
face of
word
it's not
work,
working.
but
Well,
I
okay.
would say play.
Yeah, all right. Okay. You have to give it your attention. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but on a very light and happy way,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very. I found it nicely important. Didn't want to use the word very. Nicely important to be easy with the whole process, to be relaxed and not to hit yourself over the head, because that is the old method that we've often go down the route of, like, really looking
It's
at it from that point of view that it's it's hard.
Yeah, well, it can get very hard that way, no doubt about it. And the challenge is, like we've been saying, to turn it around. What you're really doing though with that story is giving us um, a direct image or a direct vignette of how to turn it around.
Hmm.
Because, like we said, you could easily go down that path, that negative path, but you're choosing to deliberately say and believe, no, we're not going to go down that path. No, I'm going to go to a path that's a better path. I don't even have to know what that other better path is. I'm just going to go down it, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And it's an advanced position to be in. It's not something that you learn immediately right away when you start practicing, but it's one that you acquire over time, and you've acquired it brilliantly. So that makes you a great example for this kind of thing. But it also is an excellent exercise in, well, all I'm doing throughout the day, and this is basically what you're saying, all I'm doing every day is just changing my mind around to, well, if not this, something better.
Hmm.
Something better is coming. Something better. I don't know what it is, but something better.
Exactly. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but the universal law of attraction can find it.
Indeed, indeed. In fact,
And it becomes a belief to understand that the universal law of attraction, or your higher self, can see the possibilities that you can't even dream about. So
mhm.
you start getting that. You start saying, wow, I really get that now. I really get that. Because, my gosh, I would never have dreamt about 12 free tickets. I wouldn't even have vaguely, have dreamt that. Um, you know, the creche, we land up putting our daughter in the creche for far longer than we pay for. And we say to them, but We owe you hours. No, no, it's all fine. You don't have to pay anything because the government pays a certain amount of hours, and we go way over those hours
Mm.
for our daughter. But they've just said no, you don't owe anything, so that's fine. And then it goes on one thing after another after another. We just got money coming in from random places. We got people undercharging us. We're getting parcels coming to us with extra products in them which they don't want to return for free. And it just goes on and on and on. When you have that abundant kind of attitude, it's just amazing what can happen. And then of course there's certain subjects which you're not so abundant on and you suffer from those. But on the whole, it's just incredible. You just have no idea about how many different ways the universe can see to give you money. It's
Or to put it another way, how many different ways that you can allow the universe to deliver the money
yeah,
or the goods or the tickets or whatever it might be.
more
Because it's
accurate.
really
Yeah.
about the allowing. I mean,
Mm.
that's the bottom line. Are we allowing it in? And so often we don't. But the trick is, the plan is to just keep working, not working, playing. I guess is the word. Playing with the idea of something better, something better,
With,
something
with the
better.
whole with the whole stories that I'm giving out here, Walt, are really wanting people to start seeing for themselves more and more possibilities or ways that the universe can give to them. And they get more and more ideas of how this happens to many different people. You're starting to get stories about small things. I mean, nothing I'm talking about is massive,
Mm-hmm.
but accumulatively, it can become significant. Really can become significant.
And we can really become fixated on the things themselves, the manifestations themselves. People do that. Oh my God, that person has all these things going right for them. Look at those things that are in this person's life. The things just keep coming. It really isn't the things that are important. It's why they're showing up that's important. It's
Yes,
how they're showing up.
exactly, exactly. So it's the permanent cloak that you carry around with you,
The permanent
a
cloak.
magic technicolored coat that is constantly with you, but it is your thoughts. Yeah.
those thoughts are what we really control every moment of every
Mm-hmm.
day. And that's really what I was trying to remind myself of earlier. And I may not have succeeded as well as I would like to stay in that track, but you know what? That just means I can do it on the next moment. I don't
Mm.
have to have gotten it all right earlier in the day. I can get it. I can achieve my goal of focusing where I want to focus instead, starting now.
Mm.
And to heck with what happened earlier today.
Life always allows you to start over every second.
Mm-hmm. Well, every moment is kind of starting over, isn't it? It's
It
also
is.
ending. It's all kind of wrapped up into one.
Well, starting over heading in the direction of what you want and starting over heading in the direction of what you don't want are
Well, yeah, that's true. They are different.
are the criteria you want to focus on. Which one of those you really want. So yeah, it's creating your reality in the moment, in the present, by your thoughts. What is that? What is that one saying? They say um, you must be mad to think that you're going to get different results by doing the same methods.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Definition of insanity:
yeah,
repeating the same behavior over and over again, expecting different
expecting
results.
different results. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's like with your thoughts. If you keep on thinking the same things, it's insanity. It's just you're not going to get different results, different places, different faces, but the same problem.
It's a great point. Yeah, I mean, the point really is designed to bring out the fact that you're better off changing your focus, changing your thoughts. Because we don't want to focus on, well, I don't seem to be changing my thoughts, because now I'm still focused on not changing my thoughts.
That is a loop that you're going down a rabbit hole fast.
Really, really fast. Yes. uh, it is an interesting thing to deal with, though, moment by moment throughout a day, because you described in your story beautifully how to, or not how to, how you did keep shifting your thoughts to, if not, there's something better, shifting it to a better scenario every time you ran into what others would have perceived as a brick wall, you turned it into, if not this, something better. You were determined every time to shift that. And that's the goal that I'm still trying to get to. I get there like probably 8 to 10 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get there every time. That's where I want to be. That's the best place to be.
So you want to learn to step 5.
I want to step 5. Exactly. We should probably, for those who forget what step 5 is, we should probably define that. Yeah, I definitely want to step 5. I want to step 5 continuously because that's where it's at. So
step 5 is knowing what you don't want, and in the same moment, knowing what you do want and following it.
Yeah, that's it, basically, in a nutshell. It sounds so simple when we say it that way, too. You would think that would be so easy to implement. I mean, how simple could it be? That's it, right there.
It is easy.
It is.
Not. Party on, dude. I loved Wayne's World. Did you ever watch that?
I actually was never a Wayne's World fan, but I get the reference. I've seen enough clips and so forth to have the sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, I did appreciate it. It's quite a work of art, but what blew me away is that there really are people like that.
Yeah,
I did bump into one or two along the way, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they actually exist."
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Well, first of all, Mike Myers is a brilliant comedian, but he's also a brilliant spiritual philosopher. I don't know if you ever saw it. There was a series, and I can't think what the name of the series was, where they basically take two people who you would otherwise not associate because they have different fields, and they put them into conversation and film it. And one of those was with Mike Myers and Deepak Chopra. Not the most natural connection to make.
No.
But you got a really good sense listening to it how advanced Myers was with his spiritual development. In fact, Chopra was admiring him. I mean, it was really interesting. Yeah. And apparently they'd also done some work together in a number of different projects before doing that show, so they knew each other fairly well. But yeah, fascinating to see in all walks of life how many people there are who have learned. They probably don't all call it law of attraction or Abraham Hicks or anything like that, but who have learned how to do this basic pivot method, and probably don't even think of it as a pivot method, but they just have learned to do it anyway. And most often, they're the ones we see on television because they've succeeded in getting on television because they have learned this pivot method.
It's interesting because, Richard Bach, you teach best what you most need to learn.
Oh, yes.
And watching what Walt has put, you've created the Facebook group Pivot Pals. You're talking on this call a lot about pivoting. So it's interesting. You're trying to teach what you most need to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's been my philosophy from day one with the show, because when I first did my first podcast, there was a little piece of me that said, you're an absolute fraud because you don't believe any of this. You don't know how to do any of this. You're basically pursuing this from a position of complete and total lack. But there was the other piece of me that said, yeah, but what a great way to start learning. And so
make it until you make it.
Really, that's pretty much what it was. And right out of the gate, I knew that, well, I couldn't just talk about this stuff because I didn't know it anyway, so I had to start bringing on experts. So I just reached out in my first, 15 shows. Well, after the first two were just my wife, myself, my brother, and my sister-in-law. But then after that, for about 15 shows in a row, I just brought in one guest after another who had some expertise in the field. Or in something in a field related to this field, and just learned that way. And that's been my motto ever since, just to keep learning. And much to my amazement, I find there are 500 or 600 people who want to keep learning with me every week. So, oh my goodness, if not that, something better.
Yeah, it's interesting the momentum you build up once you keep things going for a while.
Yes. there are a number of precepts that Abraham Hicks has taught that I've really latched onto emotionally. One of them is the idea that the more that we focus on a thought and a belief and a feeling, it grows. The more it grows, it just keeps growing and growing. And it doesn't matter whether it's something we like or something we don't like. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is staying focused on it.
Hmm.
And when I first heard that, I mean, you and I've talked about this before, how it just resonated. Like, oh yeah, obviously that's got to be true. It was the first concise and accurate description of how beliefs are built that I'd ever heard in my life.
Hmm.
But of course, that's how they're built, and they actually aren't built any other way, which is how a number of things happen. It's how, for instance, how propaganda is so effective on a more negative scale. It's also how people are so successful on a more positive scale. It's how every single belief, scientific, philosophical, religious, political, economic, every single belief known to man comes into existence and builds itself up just by, as strange as it sounds, being believed again and again and again.
Just by thought on the subject. That's it.
Just by thought. Yeah. And the thought just keeps
We had this
building.
interior decorator the other day come into the house, and was chatting to him, and he was really spiritual. So he had all these ideas and things. So I said to him, so how would you define the word belief? And he said, well, you believe what you believe. And, and he used the word belief to try to describe belief. I said, you can't use the word belief to describe belief.
I just did. What are you talking about?
Let's say I don't know what the word belief means. So, you have to use other words. And he really struggled with that. He had no real idea of how to define the word belief. And of course, I gave him the Abraham Hicks one. A belief is a thought you think often. And he was like, wow. You mean, and he started to elaborate on what that meant for him. And I was like, yes, you've got it. And he was like, oh, you could just see the light bulbs go on all over the place.
Right?
And like, that's all belief is. It's a thought you think often. That means they could all be wrong. Yeah. That means they could all be right too.
Yeah. Well, that's the other piece of it that's so interesting to me, anyway, is we associate thoughts and beliefs with being either right or wrong, good or bad, without realizing that the reason that they're bad or good, right or wrong, is because we associate them. In other words, it's the association that builds up.
It's just another thought. It's just another thought. So when people get that, when people get that, they start realizing that they are creating their reality.
Yes.
With their thoughts.
Well,
with their beliefs.
They're at least on the path of having to face up to that. They may not actually get it because we can have a lot of resistance built up about that kind of thing. But certainly,
a brilliant Belgium student.
Hard to avoid at that point. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, we had a brilliant Belgium student. We had 3 of them, and I was chatting to this one girl, and she was really open about concepts and ideas and all the rest of it. So she said she was a strong Christian. So I said, that's cool. What does Christianity mean to you? And she was saying, oh, well, you're always doing things for other people. I said, why are you doing things for other people? And eventually we got around to the idea that because it makes her feel better. I said, well, isn't that selfish?
You like messing with people.
So I said to her, if you were born in a Muslim family, would you be a Christian? Yes, I would be. I said, no, you wouldn't. You'd be a Muslim. And it was really interesting because it's tough for people to have their belief structure smacked around the place, and start realizing that, you're a Christian or a Buddhist or a Hindu because you're brought up in that family because of that, more than any other reason that you could dream of.
And she was telling me, if you want to talk about people who get smacked around a lot too, talk a moment about people who are raised Muslim or are raised Christian or are raised whatever,
Yeah, there's
and
different types of smacking. Yes.
well, not just that, but and then end up shifting. They decide, they decide to become non-religious, which is what I ended up doing for some time. Or maybe there are even some who have switched religions,
Yep.
moved from say Christianity to Muslim, and to Islam, and that's, I mean, talk about the turbulence you can create. That creates tremendous turbulence, particularly within families, because the rest of the family is still back over there in Christianity, and all of a sudden you're over here in Islam. Like, whoa, wait a minute.
Well, I did that, not with Islam, but I changed, and it was interesting because the Catholics are very, very open for you to look at anything. They are so confident in their belief that you can look at anything. But when I looked at everything, that was fine. They didn't have any problem. But once I left, then there was big problems.
Yes.
I don't understand. What are you into? Let me read up about it. Oh no, but they. No, it was really, really tough for my parents. And after a while, they said, well, it seems to have made you stronger and a nicer person. So we don't have any problem with it.
Well, that's very good.
But it
that's
took
a great
many
reaction.
years to get there. Okay.
Oh, we're not talking instant reaction. We're talking about a learned reaction. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that's
but it was interesting. This Belgian girl that was with us, she said to us, she's a vegetarian. So I said, why are you a vegetarian? She said, well, I don't like harming animals, etc., etc. I said, that's great. So what age did you do it? She said at the age of 14, she changed. And I said, what are your parents? I still eat meat and they won't make food for me. I have to cook my own food and sort my own food out. So I said, wow, I really admire you for taking that standpoint at that age, because that is now thinking for yourself.
Right.
Even in opposition to those around you. And I really admire that. And she was saying, yeah, well, thanks for saying that. It's nice to have that kind of recognition. But, I'm always encouraging people to make their own mind up, disagree with me, please.
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 You don't get that kind of reaction from most people. I don't hear a whole lot of people coming onto the show saying, I've been so upset this week. Nobody's been disagreeing with me.
I know. I wasn't sick this week. It's terrible, Walt.
Yes, right.
I really enjoy being sick.
We talk about asking for the contrast. Woo.
But once you start realizing that contrast is your teacher, you don't mind it so much anymore. You start really getting that, hey, when you're really sick and you use all these things that you've learned, you can really get better quickly, and you can see the change. You can see that you did it with this, and it's very, very powerful. It's oh my gosh, I can do it. I can turn it around. I can change things.
What you're describing is somebody who has, in a metaphorical sense, built up his muscles and now wants to test his muscles against everything just to see, where else can he strengthen?
Absolutely.
Where else can he put on a little bit more muscle?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, masters, somebody's at the door. Gremlins are coming in.
Okay, now there's some contrast for you. How do you want to turn that contrast around?
Go away!
Well, that's one possible reaction.
So you're testing your muscles, yeah? So you're playing with a contrast, and you're starting to see that it's easier for you to play with this. And masters are guys who've really perfected this. They know that if they focus on this water being wine clear enough and with enough belief, it can turn into wine. It can change. And then they start playing with these things. They've got the power, they've got the tools, they've got the knowledge, and all it requires is a greater clarity than everybody else around them. Focus on that for long enough, and the law of attraction will manifest. It's as simple as that.
One of the things I've been working on lately is doing exactly that. Not water into wine, but doing the seeming impossible using LOA. And it's so easy to fall into the idea, well, it's impossible. I'll never be able to do this. And that's one of the reasons why I want to focus on some of these things because I want to basically desensitize myself to that idea and replace it with the idea that the 4 minute mile can be broken. The you
Mm.
know the 76-year-old body can become a 25-year-old body. The person with no muscles can grow a whole bunch of muscles overnight. All these crazy things can happen, and the only thing that's holding us back from achieving them is we believe that they're crazy. So we just have to change the belief system, and we know how to change a belief system. So, literally, part of my everyday routine is to get in front of a mirror and start telling myself about these things that, on one hand, there's a piece of my brain saying that's absolutely impossible. And on the other hand, there's this me saying to myself, yeah, I know, but let's go for it anyway because it's going to be really fun when this happens. And then I start describing what's going to happen. And I do it deliberately to shake up that other side,
Hmm.
to shake up that side of me that says this can't possibly happen. Because until I shake that up, until I do something to change it, to shift it, to think differently about it, to in some way pivot away from it, it's going to stay that same way. And I don't want it to stay that same way. I want to have the change. I want to have
Hmm.
the ability to shift, and I want to be able to do it on demand. Well, I'm not going to get there by just saying, "Well, geez, nothing ever changes." But I really would like to have it on demand, but it never changes anyway. So why bother?
What you're talking about there is going back to old thought habits, and old thought habits are comfortable. They're like clothes you've worn
Absolutely,
for
they
a
are.
long time.
Yeah.
So you just slip back into them, and I love Jim Rohn. I don't know if you know Jim Rohn well, but
No, I don't.
Jim Rohn um, is a business philosopher. Was a business philosopher, and because I was in Herbalife. He was a Herbalife distributor, but he was also the Herbalife mentor. And
Mentor. Okay.
yes, so he would get up on stage and teach us how philosophically we can improve our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so respected and loved in Herbalife. It was amazing. So we were in Athens, and there were like 10,000 people there. And he was talking about how he started in Herbalife with Mark Hughes, the original founder, and all the obstacles and things that they overcame, and Mark Hughes's incredible vision, which we've now achieved, and blah blah blah, and all the rest of it. And you know, Jim Rohn was really getting old at that stage, and you could see that his body was getting. I think he was flying to something like 70 different countries every year, talking to different groups of people.
Whoa. Yow. Yeah, that'll take a toll on anybody.
But he just wanted to share and share and share. And I qualified with 100 people in London to sit in the hall chatting to him, talking to him and things like that. So he was just an incredible individual. There's nobody that has been written books that has been as clear as Jim Rohn. He's been marvelous. But what I was trying to get to with this whole 10,000 people, he's giving the story, it was so emotional for all of us that when he left, he got called back, I think something like 5 or 6 times, and he had a
Wow.
standing ovation, and the whole audience was just tears.
Hmm.
And that was the last time I saw him on
Hmm.
Herbalife training. It was
Hmm.
a couple of years later he died, but I think
Yeah.
he stopped traveling and all the rest of it. But it was just so emotional. I mean, I can't even begin to describe it. Even talking about it makes me emotional.
Wow.
It was such a powerful. He was such an incredible individual. And again, whenever you read any of his books, any of his works, or listen to him, it's absolutely clear. And he said, for things to change, you have to change. That was one of his big mantras.
And
If
he
you
had
want
it
more
right
money in
on.
Herbalife, if you want to grow your business more, you have to change. Once you've changed, then the business will change.
It's interesting too that so many of the difficulties and problems and challenges and all the things that we put up as our forms of resistance about why things can't happen are all about essentially not being willing to change. And the reason I say that's interesting is change on the surface seems very difficult, but actually what's more difficult is staying comfortable. And that I even as I say that, it sounds strange to say that, but I know that it's true. comfort is a very uncomfortable place to be because it never changes. It's the same thing over and over again. Talk about
There's
taking the life out
something,
of you.
the way I like terming it is, there's something absolutely revolting about mediocrity.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And I couldn't stand a mediocre relationship. I couldn't stand, and there was many things, and they have catapulted me into a new vibrational thought patterns, breaking out of it. And it's just the idea that I come into this life to play with a contrast, and I just play the mediocre game. It's like, no, it's not me. I'd rather kill myself and start a game. This is not on. I'm not playing this game. Mediocrity is not for me. So, I've had a fascinating life. It's been absolutely incredible.
I could just see you on the rooftop threatening to jump, and the counselor comes up to try to talk you out of it and ask you what's going on, and you basically explain, I can't take it anymore. It's so mediocre.
Okay, that's right.
Counselor has no idea what to say to that.
Life's just too boring. Yeah. But man has found some really interesting ways of making his life not boring. Some of them very destructive.
Very destructive, yeah. Well, I think it's also, there's a taste for the dramatic. People, most people are a lot more interested in drama than I am. And I've been becoming aware of that, particularly through doing this show over the last 7.5 years. That, I mean, I really thought, probably like most people think that the same way I do, that, I never really was into the drama. And then it occurred to me one day, people like watching a lot more television than I do. People like listening to a lot more stuff that I really don't like than I do. Why is that? And I had to come to the conclusion it's because they like the drama more than I do. So apparently that's a big piece of the puzzle for an awful lot of people. They enjoy the drama. They actually prefer the drama.
But do you understand what the drama is doing for them? The drama is playing out contrast for them.
I guess it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also doing it in a way that goes over the top, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just let's play out the change, but let's do it in a way that will just blow people's minds. Like, I don't need to have my mind blown in order to experience change.
But some people do require a very different level of contrast than you.
I guess.
And the only thing you can really focus on is, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And then manifest it. And to appreciate the madness with which the other people play this contrast game.
I do often feel like the observer looking on all this saying, these people are crazy. these people are just crazy. But maybe they think the same thing about me. I don't know.
Yeah. I was saying to this vegetarian girl, I was saying to her, there's absolutely no problem with you being vegetarian. I respect it. I've talked about that. But one thing I advise you to do is not try and convert other people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'll wear you out.
Understand that this is your preference, and you will stick to it because you want to. But don't require everybody else to follow what you're following. She said, "Oh, in the beginning, I really struggled with that." I said, and she said, "Now I have let it go."
Good for her.
And she said, "But it would be nice if everybody was like that." And I said, "What? You want to make me? You want to enforce me to be a vegetarian too?" I tried to act that out because I wanted her to get the feeling of what would happen if she did start insisting that somebody else believe what she believes. And she really felt it because I acted it quite well. So, it is important to people to understand, there's this whole thing in our society, freedom of speech versus, or freedom of anything. You create more laws to restrict people, but then you're invading their freedom. So you've got this kind of, how do you create that balance? And if you go too far in curtailing people, they're going to lash out like nothing. And they have through all centuries in all different ways of all different revolutions.
I found the point that you just raised to be an effective one to present to somebody who is on that track of trying to get everybody to think the same way. The way I usually phrase it to them is, well, isn't it true that if everybody thought the same way, life would be boring? And it stops them because they never thought about it that way. You know, they thought about it in terms of, well, if everybody believed what I believed, it would be a better world, and they didn't really even think that part out very much either. But they just felt intuitively it would be a better world. And to think that it would all be kind of boring, wow, that really wasn't part of the original plan. What happened here?
Yeah, I always laugh at people when they think that there is supposed to be peace on earth. So I always throw the joke at them. I want peace, peace, and only peace, but it must be the biggest peace.
Little homonym humor there.
But, you know, even Jesus said in the Bible somewhere, he said, there will never be peace on earth.
Well, actually, I argue that there is peace on earth. I argue that's here. No, I argue the PEAC kind. I argue that it's here right now. And the best way I can think of to explain it is think about how big the earth is. Think about how much surface area there is. And then think about how much of that surface area actually has active hot wars going on right now. And then think about how much of that surface area does not. And then think about how many people are actively involved in hot wars right now. And then think about how many people are not. And you begin to realize the overwhelming majority of the planet, overwhelming, like 98%, 99% of the planet is at peace. So I claim we have a world of peace right now. And we have had it for pretty much all time.
So I'm going to put it in a different way. So,
okay.
What is peace? Peace is getting what you want.
Oh, yeah, there's a good way to turn it around. Yeah.
And if you only get what you want, you never expand.
Yeah.
Therefore, you start appreciating the reason why you came to this physical universe is to play with contrast. Know what you don't want, which is not peaceful. To know what you do want, which is peaceful. And if you didn't experience the one, you wouldn't expand to the other. And then your whole reason for coming down here, says Abram, is to expand the whole through contrast, would be annihilated. So you are saying that there is more peace than there is war in the world. Yes, we don't deny that. But each one of those peaceful countries are still having tiffs in the house about who put the toilet seat up or down, which is war. So, yeah, it's it's the appreciation that has come to me about knowing what I don't want and how important it is, which has changed everything for me.
Talk about that a little bit more.
So, understanding that I will always experience contrast, knowing what I don't want, if I'm alive. And I know that it is good for me because it'll help me know better what I do want.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just an appreciation for step one.
Okay.
And it is a true appreciation. I really get it. I really, really get it. You know, might not be instantaneously get it, but pretty soon afterwards, you know, it's built into my DNA now that I must look for what I do want out of what I don't want. You know, it's totally, totally there. And the appreciation doesn't only extend to myself, appreciation extends to all those who are out of the vortex around me. It's like, oh gosh, they're learning what they don't want. Isn't that great? Because then they will have a better idea what they do want. And then my job, my only job, is to make people aware of the process. Because
okay.
I enjoy it, not because I want to change anybody.
Yeah, it's an interesting distinction there and a good one to make. I think it's a sanity making distinction
Hmm.
because going down the other path will pretty much drive you nuts.
Wow. I can try and force you to change, Walt, but I don't think I'll win. I think it'll be painful.
That's just it. But we don't think about that at first. It take, like you say, you have to kind of experience that.
Yeah, everybody should be a vegetarian. Yes, they should be.
Everybody, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've stopped smoking. Everybody should stop smoking.
Mm-hmm.
What do
I
they say?
started smoking. Everybody should
There's
start
nothing like
smoking.
a reformed smoker, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Nothing worse than a reformed smoker. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think the more fascinating person is the person who defends their vice, whatever their vice is. The thing is, the thing that most people don't like that they have decided that they like, and to hell with anybody else's opinion on it. They're the interesting ones, because those are the people who will light that cigarette, they'll smoke it, they'll blow the smoke in your face, and they'll say how much they're enjoying doing it.
And I'll say to them, I like that smell, or I will vanish out of their arena, I will just walk away.
Yeah.
So
can you
I
imagine
appreciate
if that person tried to actually talk you into becoming a smoker?
I'd have so much fun with that.
That's right. You want that, Michelle. I forgot that. You want the podcast.
I'd have so much fun. Bring it on. But people don't tend to challenge me. They just don't. It would be nice to have some good intellectual discussions with people who really know what they believe. Just doesn't happen that often. People aren't very clear about what they believe.
Well, it doesn't have to be intellectual. You could also be challenged, physically. Like somebody comes along and physically tries to force you, takes the cigarette and shoves it into your mouth and starts pushing your chest to make you breathe it. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be fun too. Bring it on. That would be interesting.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is this guy a masochist or what? I mean,
yeah, the interesting thing is when your belief structure is you're not thinking about this is not going to happen. You're just so clear about where you're going that these things don't ever bother you. They don't come into your life. They're not vibrational matches. They don't click in. And when you do get one, like, as I said, quite a few, it was probably about a year ago, this BT British gas engineer comes along, and I just didn't like her. And I was like absolutely thrown. It was like a physical revulsion for absolutely no apparent reason. And my wife had exactly the same reaction to her. And we were both going, what was that? Where did that come from? How did that happen? And, you do get curveballs, which you have no idea why they bounced into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they've left, you're still clueless. You're still sitting there reeling. But, you don't really have to understand everything. You just have to say, well, something in my vibration or our vibration brought that in, and let's just continue focusing on what we want. So I actually spent quite a bit of time focusing on the kind of British gas engineer I wanted coming to the house next. And it was a really nice guy who was very friendly and very helpful. But it was interesting. I knew what I didn't want quite clearly. She must not come back.
Well, I wanted to continue your baseball metaphor because you used the term a curveball, which comes from baseball. And when you're at the plate and you're hitting and the pitcher throws you a curveball, the smart thing to do, assuming that you recognize that it is a curveball, is to let it go because you're looking for the fastball. That's the one you want to hit. So when life throws you a curveball, let it go.
Right.
Just let it go.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
So anyway, good hour, good conversation. I think we also, you gave me a title for the topic today. I wasn't quite sure what to call it, but today's topic is what happens when life throws you a curveball. So there's my title for today. Want to remind people who are not yet subscribers, become a subscriber. Very simple. Go to the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. All the instructions are right at the top. Click, click, click. And just like that, you're a subscriber. Check us out on YouTube also. You can subscribe there as well. Just do a search for LOA Today podcast videos. And that pretty much is it for the announcements for today. So Louis, thank you very much for all of your
thank you,
insights. Thank you. And thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Carpe diem, everyone.